Everybody enjoys a good love story. The theme of romance isn't something that's exclusively applicable to those Turkish dramas that your grandma watches. It's me, by the way, I'm the grandma. But we can find it in many of our favorite stories through TV series, movies, books, and even video games. We talked a little bit about all of the small details in the Elder Scrolls and how they contribute to the many layers of such a complex and rich world. Today, however, I wanted to explore the topic of love and romance by taking a look at some of my favorite and most iconic couples in the Elder Scrolls universe. As in real life, love is a complex topic that takes on many forms and doesn't necessarily guarantee a happy or wholesome ending. Even still, I like to think it makes the Nern go round, at least until the end of the next Kalpa. Before we get started, hi, my name is Angelika. It is Valentine's Day and love is in the Elder Scrolls. I would know. I've read them. I just wanted to say a huge thanks to all of you for 20,000 subscribers, and to celebrate, we are going to be taking a look at the romance in the Elder Scrolls for this very special occasion. My favorite passages from my forbidden literature. Now, this video isn't by any means a ranking of the couples, it's just a selection of my favorite love stories in no particular order. For a change, let's start this video in Skyrim, as I've realized that up to this point we actually haven't properly covered the game at all, and for all of its many shortcomings, I still think it's a great game. For our first story, we have Serana and the Dragonborn. Just kidding, that never happens. For our first love story, we will be taking a look at Holgar and Fiori from the A Love Beyond Death quest. To really learn the full story and the fate of its protagonists, we must journey north of Riften to the Anselwund excavation site. It is here that we come across a book that holds the key to our progression through the excavation, titled Of Fiori and Holgar. This book tells a story of enemies to lovers, rivals that met on the field of battle. The two fell so deeply in love that the reason behind their conflict has been long forgotten. They fought to a standstill as their followers looked on, till her sword broke his axe and his shield dulled her blade, and all could see that they were equals. As the eagle finds its mates, so too did Fiori find hers in Holgar, and a time of peace came to the clans of the forest. But as the summer's warmth gives way to winter's chill, so too would this peace pass. One day, Holgar was bitten by a venomous snake, and Fiori had to journey to retrieve a curative elixir from the Akavir. Upon her return, Holgar was nearly gone. He could, quote, smell the winds of Sovngarde, but she had arrived just in time. After giving him every last drop of the elixir to cure him, she too was bitten by the snake. Exhausted from her journey and having used up all of the elixir on Holgar, Fiori passed, leaving her lover alone in the world. Holgar was unable to overcome his grief, so he built a tomb for his beloved, and shortly after its completion, he decided to take his own life and follow Fiori to Sovngarde. Now you as the reader may try and take solace in the fact that both of them went to meet their ancestors together. However, this was not the end of their story. The pair were to become the unfortunate subjects of experiments performed by a grieving necromancer by the name of Lua el Skaven. Lua is a Redguard woman who descended into madness after her husband, Sail, was killed in the Great War while helping the Empire take back the Imperial City from the Aldmiri Dominion some 25 years prior. At the time of his death, all she received was a note from the Imperial Prefect offering Imperial condolences to the widow. His body was burnt before she could attempt to resurrect him. Desperate and overcome with rage after having lost her husband to what she called a pointless war, Lua chose the bodies of Holgar and Fiori as vessels for her and Sail. Up to that point, her experiments were unsuccessful, and she was only stopped by the Dragonborn, who had to fight her and the Draugr corpses of Holgar and Fiori, as well as a skeletal army. Once she was defeated, the curse that bound Holgar and Fiori to their undead forms was finally broken. Their spirits were freed, and they could finally pass on to Sovngarde to meet their ancestors together. For our second story, we have a sort of a Romeo and Juliet type scenario in Ulfina Greymane and John Battleborn. The pair come from two families that hate each other, with the Battleborn clan being loyal to the Empire, and the Greymanes backing the Stormcloak Rebellion. Despite their family and political differences, the two have found love, but they must stay hidden so as to not risk losing one another in the family feud. They are careful, with the only evidence of their relationship existing in a note written by Ulfina to John. The note reads, "John, I know it is hard, but please, try and be patient. We must keep to ourselves for now. You know that both of our families would react so very badly if they knew, if they even suspected. There will be a time when we don't need to hide. I promise you that. Someday, they will understand." John keeps this note on his person, and if somebody with particularly sticky fingers were to knock this note out of his pocket, they would actually be in possession of some pretty damning evidence. Now, I mentioned that this appears to be the only evidence of their relationship. However, you can learn more if you choose to spend some time around the couple. Ulfina works in the Bannered Mare Tavern, and Just by pure coincidence, John spends a lot of time in this tavern. Under their circumstances, they must be very secretive, however, their not so subtle conversations can be overheard. Now, speaking to the canon, I imagine that these are little talks that they have when they know they're alone and in private, but in the game, this is only sort of implied because in reality, they will speak to each other in this manner in the middle of the tavern, and I mean, realistically, anybody that's in that building would hear them. Here are some clips of their conversations that I think really give you a sense of what the dynamic in this relationship is, and I think that it is quite sweet and playful.
So have you spoken to that man from the Bard's College?
No, not yet. But I will. I just haven't gotten around to it yet.
Oh, John, stop dallying. You know you have to go. It's why Mara put you on this earth. You think a few miles can truly keep us apart?
You mean you won't forget about me the moment I'm out of
I
sight?
ain't asking
Get
for
yourself
much,
a nice
just a
old
few
rich
seconds.
husband, have 16 babies.
You've uncovered my master plan. Now I suppose you'll never leave.
Harlot. Sing you a special song tonight, beautiful lass?
Not now, I'm working.
Ah, you're always working. Why else would I spend so much time here?
Mikhail is quite the songbird. Maybe he's the reason you're here all the time.
Aye, the bard's got talent. I'll give him that. You just make sure his music is the only thing you're admiring.
Oh, John, darling, you know you're the only stone-biting, knuckle-dragging Nord for me.
Ah, that's my girl. I want to see you when you're done working.
I can't, not tonight. I need to go home. I swear my father is starting to suspect something.
That's your imagination running wild. Nobody knows how we feel about each other.
Don't talk about my father like that, John. And the answer's still no. But tomorrow, definitely.
For our next couple, we have quite a long story, so please bear with me. We will be taking a look at Queen Barenziah and Symmachus. Barenziah is one of my favorite figures in Tamrielic history, and although she has had many lovers, I think that going into her full story of her life would be a good topic for a separate video. I chose to speak about her relationship with Symmachus because I think that this is a great example of a more nuanced and not so straightforward or traditional understanding of a love story. Before getting into the story, I will mention that there are two accounts of Barenziah's life which detail her relationships. One of those is the 3-part biography of Barenziah, which is the widely approved version of events, and then you have the real Barenziah, which is a controversial and scandalous retelling of her life and all of its most intimate details. When talking about her relationship with Symmachus, I will reference both, but I will mostly focus on that controversial source because I believe that though it may not be fully 100% accurate, it is the closest that we will get to somewhat of the truth of her relationship with him. Symmachus was a dark elven ranger of Tiber Septim's army, and he knew Barenziah, who was also a dark elf, since she was only a child. After the fall of Mournhold in the late Second Era, Symmachus found a young Princess Barenziah alone in the wreckage. He suggested to the Emperor that the child should be sent away somewhere safe, as she may one day prove to be valuable to the Empire. She was sent to Skyrim, and when she became a teenager, were reunited there after she had fallen in with a rough crowd. It was clear that even then he cared for her because on their way to Tiber Septim's court, he had counseled and advised her on how she should carry herself, how she should behave if she is to one day take over and become the rightful queen of her homeland. She stayed with the Emperor until the age of 18, after which Symmachus could finally take her back to Mournhold, where she did in fact become queen, and he her prime minister. After many years of rule, Symmachus finally made his intentions clear and asked Barenziah to be his wife. In her own mind, she was not so keen at first, with her initial thoughts being, he is far below her station, but there was an undeniable warmth and comfort that she felt in his embrace, and so she agreed. Her court was always suspicious of Symmachus due to his close ties with the Empire, but he proved that power was not necessarily everything that he was after. Elven children are said to be slow to come, and so after many years of failing to conceive, Barenziah assumed that the fault was with her, and she referred to herself as damaged goods, suggesting that Symmachus take another wife. "I want no other," he told her. He was willing and open to look for a cure or some way to rectify this issue, and he was patient and he wanted to be only with her. Years went by and the couple remained childless. Barenziah began to grow bored, and at some point when Symmachus was away on business in the imperial city, she found herself in the company of a bard called the Nightingale. She allowed herself to be seduced by this bard who always seemed to say the right thing, and she very much looked forward to their meetings, which were easier still as Symmachus was away. One night she went a step further and invited this bard to her bedchamber under the pretext of wanting to hear some music to fall asleep to. Yeah, right, Barenziah. Now, though nothing really happened between the two that night, and not because Barenziah didn't want it, but because the Nightingale denied her, he actually convinced her to come with him to the mines beneath the city to retrieve what was called the Horn of Summoning. She was completely enthralled with him at this point and did everything that he asked, yet the Nightingale continued to deny her his affections until he got what he really wanted. There was no Horn of Summoning, and he knew that. He tricked Barenziah into believing that that was what he was after, when in reality he was seeking the Staff of Chaos. Barenziah's aid was essential in retrieving the staff, which, in the wrong hands, had catastrophic implications for the world. Symmachus, practically walking in on them, arrived just a little too late. The staff was already in the hands of the Nightingale, who disappeared under a deep crevice which closed over him in that mine. Barenziah admitted to Symmachus that she loved the bard, and instead of forsaking her for her infidelity, he assured her that he would be by her side in the storm that was to come as consequences of her own actions. "My dearest Barenziah," he called her. Husband and wife were now properly reunited, and soon after they had 2 children, a son named Helseth, and later a daughter, Morgaia, named after Symmachus' mother. They were happy together, they had a family, and Symmachus worked tirelessly to locate the Staff of Chaos and find out who was truly behind its theft. Reluctantly, he and Barenziah had to temporarily part ways. He sent her and the children away to the imperial city in an attempt to salvage their deteriorating relations with the Empire, for which they could find no reason. He also wanted them away because he thought that at that time it would be much safer because of everything that was about to start happening in Mournhold. Before she left, she expressed her concerns for his safety, admitting that she would rather go hungry but not be left with an empty heart. He wrote to her often until one day she received the word that Symmachus was killed in the peasant revolt. She was heartbroken, in denial, and disbelieved that she would have to live out the rest of her life without him. He could never see their children grow, and she would never again feel his warmth. There is much debate as to whether or not Barenziah ever truly loved Symmachus, especially since she went on to have relations with the Nightingale, who was really Yegar Tharn pretending to be the Emperor, hence the worsening relations with the Empire, but this is a story for another time. I personally believe that she did love him in her own way. Barenziah was driven by passion, lust, temptation, a lot more than sincere love. She had even said that dark elves are on the more promiscuous side, but I think that that was just as a comfort to herself. You know, when she did things like go off with the Nightingale. Even still, if you separate passion and what we know as sincere love, her love was fleeting, it was fickle, but it was there, at least for a time, and Symmachus knew that, but he loved her anyway. She was never fully devoted, there was a clear imbalance in their relationship, and he seemed to be fine with that. While her love came from a selfish place, I don't doubt in the slightest that Symmachus actually loved her deeply. He was wronged and he took her back, and he never once went back on her infidelity as a way to hurt her or take the moral high ground, and if the real Barenziah source is to be believed at all, he in fact kept it quite lighthearted. "You have a way with men, love," he would tell her, "especially with me." Their story is turbulent, complicated, and one of my favorites in all of Tamrielic history. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments on whether or not you think Barenziah ever truly loved him. For the next couple, let's take a look at a more lighthearted story. In the Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion, in the city of Coral, you will come across a romantic stories author called Casta Scribonia. Her passion for romantic stories goes beyond what she writes in her books, and she lets you know that she thinks that a lonely Nord guard captain called Bitneld the Cursebringer and a Nord barmaid called Emfrid would make the perfect match. Bitneld is a bit rough around the edges, really set in his ways. When you ask him what he thinks of the women in Coral, he says they're fine looking, but they're snooty and not very nice. Speaking to Emfrid, she is one of the only people in the town that actually has something to say about Bitneld, and she expresses regret around him not coming to see her in the inn more often. After this particular revelation, if you go back and speak to Bitneld again and ask him what he thinks of Emfrid, he's a bit dismissive and he says that she caters to a better class of people. However, just as he says this, he realizes that he is being a bit snooty himself, and so decides that actually, you know what? he will go to the inn, test the waters, and see if Emfred is actually interested in him. From then on, Bidnelt continues to visit the inn every day in the evening for about 4 hours just to spend time with Emfred, at which the author, Casta Scribonia, appears delighted. That's just some material for her next book. You know what, she really doesn't mind her own business. I mean, this ended well, but it also could not have. For our final couple in this video, I want to take us back to Morrowind. Now, I've mentioned already that I've never fully finished the game, but a quest that really stuck with me is called The Beauty and the Bandit. On the road to Balmora from Seyda-Neen, you come across a lone Breton woman named Marie Armine. When speaking to her at first, she appears in distress as she was robbed of her jewels while traveling, but you quickly learn that she is in fact love-struck from the handsome man that took her jewels. She has become so infatuated with the thief that took her valuables that she asks you to deliver him one of her gloves as a token of her affection. You can find this thief, the Dunmer Nillos Omar, in a tavern in Pelagiad. He seems to be pleased at having received the glove, and he gives you a handwritten note to bring back to Maury. It reads, "Maury, truly, I was enchanted with you from the moment I saw you, which is why I took your stuff. I beg your forgiveness for my past transgressions. While I cannot imagine what a woman of your beauty and breeding would see in a rogue such as me, I thank the gods that you have sent for me. I will come to you as soon as I can. Until then, yours, Nillos." You could say that she developed Stockholm Syndrome in 5 minutes, but I would say that this is destiny and they probably lived happily ever after. And that is about it for Love in the Elder Scrolls, which, by the way, this was a really fun and different sort of video to make. I really enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments what your favorite Elder Scrolls couples are and why. Once again, thank you all for your support, and I hope you're all having a very nice Valentine's Day. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one. Be seeing you! Bye!